Welcome to Regis World Literature. This is lesson 27. Speaking of grammar, we are continuing in learning about commas. As you can tell, the commas is a very extensive section because there are a lot of different ways that commas are used. Now, last time we were finishing up talking about using commas with parenthetical information. That could be an absolute phrase, meaning that it has a noun and a participle. And we gave you several examples of that. Appositives, meaning that we have a proper noun or a noun phrase that serves to describe or rename another noun or give more information. Those appositives could either be non-restrictive, which means that they are not essential to my understanding of the meaning, or restrictive, meaning that I cannot understand what exactly I'm talking about without the appositive. In other words, the popular restaurant Joe's Place. It's not just any popular restaurant. I need to understand. I need that phrase, Joe's Place, to know what we're talking about. Okay, and so if it's that, then we do not use commas. If it's non-restrictive, we do use commas. Okay, now we've come down to the next idea. It's also part of parenthetical information. We have 3 more sections in parenthetical information: relative clauses, interjections, and nouns of address. So the first one we'll talk about then is relative clauses. So this is actually in my number, okay? We've already had absolute phrases and appositives. So this would be the third one of our parenthetical information, relative clauses. Now, this is, again, part of parenthetical information. It's in addition to the main part, the main clause of the sentence. It says relative clauses, which are also known as adjective clauses, are dependent clauses that provide descriptive information about a noun or noun phrase. Relative clauses are introduced by either a relative pronoun or a relative relative pronoun or a relative adverb. Like appositives, the information relative clauses provide can either be essential, restrictive, or non-essential, non-restrictive, to the completeness of the sentence. Only non-restrictive relative clauses are set apart by commas. Okay. So just the same rule as we had for appositives. Now, when I say set apart, what I mean is if it's at the beginning of the sentence, you have a comma after it, and then the rest of the sentence. If it's at the end of the sentence, you have a comma before it, and then you have your relative clause. Or if it's in the middle of the sentence, it has a comma on both sides. That's what we mean when we say set apart. It's separated from the rest of the sentence by commas, however you need it to be, depending upon its position in the sentence. Here's an example now. The woman down the street, whose children are the same age as ours, invited us over for dinner next week. Can you hear the relative clause? Okay, I'm going to read it one more time. The woman down the street, okay, ... whose children are the same age as ours, invited us over for dinner next week. Okay? So the main sentence is the woman invited us, right? This is the subject, this is the verb. This is, I didn't write it all in, but that's my relative clause, and it's separated on both sides by commas. Let me read you another one. Samantha, whom I've asked to be my bridesmaid is getting married next year. Okay, so these are all non-restrictive clauses. That means they are not needed for me to understand who I'm speaking about. Listen to the first one again. The woman down the street invited us over for dinner next week. I understand who I'm speaking about, even if that clause was not there. The clause, whose children are the same age as ours, is additional information but not needed for me to understand the noun. Samantha, whom I've asked to be my bridesmaid, is getting married next year. Again, Samantha is getting married next year. Perfectly, I understand who I'm speaking about. I mean, if I knew who Samantha was, right? Okay. But whom I've asked to be my bridesmaid is additional information, not required information for understanding. Now let's contrast that to restrictive relative clauses. The first example would be, I saw the guy who delivers my mail in town yesterday. If I just said I saw the guy in town yesterday, I wouldn't know who I was talking about. So this is actual essential. It's an essential clause for me to understand the meaning. So guess what? No commas. I saw the guy who delivers my mail in town yesterday. No commas in that whole sentence. Let's listen to another. This was the river where we learned to swim. If I just said this was the river, I would not understand what I'm talking about. Or you would not understand what I'm talking about. I might understand. But I need more information to know which river or what this river is. And that is a restrictive relative clause. This was the river where we learned to swim, no commas. There are a few different things that we've been working on lately. There are a few different things, has no meaning by itself, that we've been working on lately helps me understand what those things are. So that, again, restrictive. And finally, do you know the reason why the sky is blue? Do you know the reason? Leaves me hanging. I don't know what you're asking. Okay. So learn those relative adverbs, that list, and the relative pronouns, because they will help you identify relative clauses. Okay, now that was number 3 of our parenthetical information. Let's move on then to number 4. The next kind of parenthetical information, which is interjections. An interjection, also known as an exclamation, is a word, a phrase, or a sound used to convey an emotion such as surprise, excitement, happiness, or anger. Interjections can stand alone as minor sentences with an ending punctuation mark after them, a period, an exclamation point, or a question mark. However, since interjections are not proper sentences, some writers prefer to attach them to a complete sentence with a comma. Okay. So either way, you can do it. You can have them as a minor sentence with an ending punctuation, remember, we have 3 ending punctuation marks, period, exclamation point, or question mark. Or use with a comma to attach them more closely to the rest of the sentence. Your choice. Either way is fine. But if you are using them with a comma, it would look like this. Wow, what a great achievement. I could either say wow, so either one will be correct. I could say wow, exclamation point, what a great achievement, or I could say wow, comma, what a great achievement. Now the last one we'll talk about is the nouns of address. A noun of address is could also be called a vocative, And I used to learn it as a noun of direct address. It means who you are speaking to. I don't seem to use that part of the phrase anymore. Okay. Is the person or thing you are directly addressing. Like interjections, they are grammatically unrelated to the rest of the sentence. They don't modify or affect any other part of it. Instead, they're used to let the listener or the reader know who is being spoken to. That's the key, not about, but to. Or to get that person's attention. For example, James, I need you to help me with the dishes. Can I have some money, Mom? This class is the video I was telling you about. Sorry, Tom, I didn't see you here. You in the back, do you have a question? In all of those, I'm breaking up my sentence with what we call a noun of direct address. I'm talking to somebody. In all those cases, I want to separate that word or that 2 words or whatever, you in the back, that phrase, you want to separate it from the rest of the sentence by commas. Now, of course, when I say with commas, depending on where it's positioned in the sentence, it may need 1 comma because it's at the beginning, 1 comma because it's at the end, or 2 commas because it's in the middle. Let me give you 2 examples. Okay, so my examples, sorry, Tom. I'm speaking to Tom, so I want to separate it by commas. I didn't see you, or you in the back. That's my direct address right there. This is my direct address, or noun of address. You could simply say that. Do you have a question? Okay, so that's all we're covering today. These are, again, 3 new types of parenthetical information that we insert into a sentence using commas. Now, next tape, we'll talk about another way to use commas with contrasting information. So make sure you write these notes into your section on grammar and for this unit, and we will talk to you next time about it. On lesson 28 will be the next lesson.